Yeah, there we go. People swarming into the webinar. That is awesome. Well, good afternoon, good morning, good evening, hello, good night, wherever you are in the world. It's great to see all of you and welcome to this webinar. I'm so excited for this chat today. The topic is what can companies take away from COVID? As people say, a crisis is a terrible thing to waste. COVID has sucked. I personally hated it. But maybe if we could learn something from it, maybe if we could take some positive lessons from this, maybe it wouldn't suck as much in retrospect. And also, it has pushed companies to try new things. It has pushed leaders and teams out of their comfort zones. And maybe we learned something that we could actually use in the future. So that's the topic for today. And I think it makes a special sense to talk about it now, where it looks like we can sort of see the end of it. I hope I'm not jinxing anything here, but it looks like we can sort of start to see light at the end of the tunnel, which is amazing. And with me to talk about this, we have Rich Sheridan, and Rich is awesome. Let me introduce him. He is the Chief Storyteller. Is that still your title, Rich?
Oh,
Chief
yes.
Storyteller of Menlo Innovations in Ann Arbor, Michigan, which is this amazing software company, tech company. I've been there and visited them. I've seen their culture for myself. They're fantastic. Rich is a great author. He's written 2 amazing books. This is the first one called Joy Inc. And then the other one is Chief Joy Officer, which I don't have on paper, only on Kindle, so I can't hold it up and show it. There it is, Rich. Yeah, you came prepared. I like that. These are both great books that I highly, highly recommend. Rich knows his stuff. He's created a fantastic culture at Menlo, and he's been teaching this culture and the best lessons from it to companies all over the world, and speaks at the conferences and companies all over the world. So I'm so happy that he's joining us. Also, Rich is a great friend, and I really, really like him. Hey, Rich, how are you today?
Great, Alexander. Wonderful to see you.
Hey, you too. So let's take this from the top. What do you see that companies need to learn, take away from this pandemic, and focus on in the future?
Well, I think the things that are here today are the things that have always been here. We're just being reminded of them so substantially now. What I talk about when I share our lessons with the world is, number one, be intentional about your culture. Don't let it happen by default. Don't let it be driven by who did we hire, what attitudes do we tolerate, what behaviors walked in the door this morning. Be clear, set expectations for everyone around you. And of course, my personal encouragement is create an intentionally joyful culture. And so we've done that now we're going to celebrate our 20th birthday this year as a company. June 12th will be 20. There was a time during the last year I wasn't sure we were going to make it to 20, so thought we would have. I'm glad to be here with you. I'm glad we're still alive, and good news, we're thriving again, which is wonderful. But what we learned again, I would say what I really learned, because when all this hit, our company, Alexander, you know that we're a company that values being together in a big room, no walls, offices, cubes, doors. We work to a computer. We share a keyboard and a mouse. We pass around a 2-horned plastic Viking helmet to be the talking stick of our daily stand-up meeting. I don't think you could create a more dangerous culture than the one we had for trying to avoid spread of a contagion that could kill people.
Yeah, you guys are close, right? You were close in the physical space.
Yep.
Sitting basically on top of each other, and yeah.
Oh yeah, if you want, I could even show you some pictures of it. But we were just working shoulder to shoulder all day long, talking to each other all day long in close proximity. I mean, there's no way we could continue working that way. So what I learned was, while the principles and practices were welded together, and then they got pulled apart, the principles can remain of teamwork, collaboration, trust, relationships, human energy, empathy. All of those things remained. And I readily admit, I didn't I didn't know what was going to happen when we had to bug out, when we had to, I mean, it was like a fire drill, right? It
Mhm.
was like, get out of the building, grab equipment, get out as quick as you can, go home, we'll figure it out. And
It's
that's really,
also, but it's in a situation like that that you find out whether or not you're actually committed to your values or your principles as an organization, right? Because that could have been an opportunity to say, okay, all of that stuff, let's forget about that. Now we go into survival mode and we just do whatever. And you've definitely seen organizations do that. But if you truly believe in your principles, in your culture, in your values, then this is an opportunity to double down and say, okay, the practices are sort of secondary, and what matters is the values, the principles, and how do we maintain those given a new set of circumstances and finding a new set of practices. So it's really, do you actually believe in what you've created, or is it just uh, 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 uh,
window dressing.
win the nice phrases for the culture deck, right?
Well, and I always say that, if you have, all of us have systems in our workplaces, systems of getting things done, processes we use. And the question is, during a time of challenge, during a time of, sometimes it's just not a challenge like we're facing now, but we get busier or some emergency happens. And the question is, in those moments, do you flee toward your systems or do you flee away from your systems? And if you flee away from your systems during times of trouble, you don't have good systems.
Yeah, exactly. So what were you forced to try at Menlo that worked for you, that you might continue even after this pandemic is under control?
Yeah, well, I'm gonna frame things a little bit because I think this will be useful for our conversation. I'll talk about traditional Menlo, the 19 years of the way we've traditionally worked. I'll talk about pandemic Menlo, the last year. And then we can speculate as much as we want about what post-pandemic Menlo might look like. But I will assure you that the last year has taught me one thing, if it's taught me anything: be open-minded. Don't have a firm idea of what could happen next. So I'll be honest, I really don't know what's coming, but I'm in a really cool spot now, way different than I was a year ago. I'm actually excited about the unknown.
Oh, that's
When
awesome.
this first hit, I panicked. It was like, oh my God, what's going to happen, right? And it worked, and it worked delightfully. I mean, I'll give you an example. One of our practices. So we are a software design and development firm. What we do is we build software for other businesses. People come to us with ideas. We form teams around those ideas. We design the software and then we build it. That's what we do for a living. The design part is really central to our mission to end human suffering in the world as it relates to technology. We want to delight the people we intend to serve, the end users of the software we're creating. In order to do that, we had to create an entirely new practice. We call it high-tech anthropology. And our high-tech anthropologists spend most of their time out in the field, out in the world, studying people in their native environment, learning their workflow, their habits, their goals as human beings, their vocabulary, all those things. They want to understand the humans, okay? Because software is ultimately used by humans. And if we're going to delight those humans, we better understand them. So we have this group of people, about 25% of our team, that are literally carry a card that says high-tech anthropologist. It's a very cool title, by the way. It gets a
Very
lot
cool.
of attention at cocktail parties, and that's what you do. What's a high-tech anthropologist? So here's this group of people central to our mission, central to our work, and their job is to go out into the world on airplanes, go to workplaces, and study people. Well, guess what? You can't do that right now. There's nobody getting on airplanes. There's nobody going. And even if you went there, those people you were going to study aren't in the office anyways. So how's this going to work? And this was one of those moments where I'm like, oh my God, can Menlo still function? Can we still exist? Will people still be able to use us because of this? And in that moment, one of our senior high-tech anthropologists, Molly, we're putting together a proposal for a company who had engaged us during the pandemic, and getting a new customer during the pandemic was pure joy. Right? It's like, yay, somebody still needs us. And here we're trying to figure out, how are we going to do the high-tech anthropology piece, right? And Molly leans in and she says, this will be so exciting to figure out how to do this. I'm like, thank you, Molly. It's like, that was such a word of comfort, right? The team, I saw this, they got there faster than I did. They embraced the change. They said, we'll figure this out. We'll run experiments. We'll try new stuff. We'll figure out a way to do this. And I think this goes back to two things that I think have kept Menlo alive for 19 years and now for 20. They believe in the system we've created. They believe in our culture. They believe in our mission. They believe in how we do things. And they want Menlo to survive to see another day, because they don't want to go out into the real world.
So how did they do it? I've got to know.
Yeah, well, they just, much like you and I are doing this now, right? They said, look, well, we're going to do remote with Zoom. We're going to have our users, put up a screen of the things they're using, because often we're looking at trying to improve an existing torturous system that they're currently using. And so we want to watch them do it. And then they would just get on a Zoom call, record it, have people bring up on their screens what they're working on and that sort of thing. And if there's Post-it notes around them, which often yields a lot of really interesting information to an anthropologist, it's not just the technical things, it's the environment and that sort of thing. And so they'd ask them to take pictures of those things, talk about them and that sort of thing. And they just made it work. And it was really, I will say, just for me personally, it was so comforting to see the spirit and energy of our team adapt so quickly. Now, from a leadership standpoint, what I helped do was set a framework for getting back to where we are today. I said, look, guys, this is going to be a tough year. It was obvious from the start, this was going to be tough. And so I laid out a 5-step plan to get back to where we are now, which is thriving again. I said, we're going to have to survive. And there's going to have to be some difficult decisions just to simply survive. I likened it to that, the Swiss Family Robinson story, where they're going one place and their little ship gets shipwrecked, and now we're all cast off to a desert island. And first thing is like, okay, is everybody okay? Have we saved everybody? Let's count heads, let's count hearts. Just to use our hosts here. And then we're going to have to adapt. This is a new world. So we're going to survive, we'll adapt, and let's get ourselves as quickly as possible back to sustain. Just a safe place where we know we can feed ourselves every day, that we can stay in our homes, that we can feed our families, that we can have our health insurance and all that kind of stuff. And then the most important and lengthy phase of the last year is the one that will produce lasting effects that we can talk about in the rest of this time together. Emerge stronger. This is not about just I will admit, the first 8 weeks of this, all I'm thinking is, how soon are we getting back? How soon are we getting back to the way we were? This can't possibly last more than 8 weeks, can it? I'm not even sure. We're 52, 53 weeks in. I'm not sure it'll be done 8 weeks from now, right? And I'm not assuming that. But in this year, our main rallying cry was emerge stronger. And it was actually brought to us, that message was brought to us by Patrick Lencioni. He had done a seminar right at the beginning of the pandemic. And he said kind of two basic, kind of simple constructs. He said, number one, companies are either going to survive or they're going to die during this time. Okay, that makes sense. He says those that survive have a choice. They can either emerge stronger, or if they don't choose that, they're going to emerge weaker. It's your choice as leaders to emerge stronger. And then I told the team, if we do that for long enough, we will thrive again. And we are literally back there right now. We're hiring again. We're busy as can be. It's going great, but it's a very, very different Menlo from what you saw a year ago, what you saw when you came to visit.
Yeah, which was everybody in the physical space. Of course, one of the big changes that a lot of people have had, or a lot of companies have had to deal with, is working from home. And you guys have been again, we're very focused on the physical space, bringing everybody into the office, and now you've had to work from home. What are some lessons that companies can learn from that? Because it seems to me that it works once you try it.
I think the biggest challenge that anybody faces during this time, and I'm not just talking about work challenge, I mean life challenge, is loneliness and isolation. And that can happen a lot in our work lives. I've talked to others, my daughters, who are in that environment in the companies they work for. And that was hard. The separation from your colleagues, from your peers, the inability to have that casual coffee conversation while you're going to the lunchroom, just the ability to ask simple questions about something you're stuck on. There's those barriers now, right, between us that, like, I may know how to get a hold of Alexander, but is he really there? Should I interrupt him? Maybe he's in the middle of something. And, and that.
Is he wearing clothes? Who knows?
Yeah. Does he have his shorts on this morning? We still don't know. That's the great mystery of this particular episode. And so we never missed a beat on our culture. As you know, we work in pairs. 2 people, 1 computer, working on the same task at the same time. The pairs are assigned and we switch them every 5 working days. So everyone, all work at Menlo is done in pairs. Well, it's pretty easy to do that when you're all in a room together. Maybe a little harder to do that remotely, but we figured it out. And in fact, if you want, I could show you a little time-lapse photography of what it looks like.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, let me do that. This will just take me a sec. Oh, you have to give me screen sharing ability.
Can we do that, Bojana?
Yes, just a moment.
Awesome.
I swear this will only take a second.
Well, you do work in tech, right? Now the
Well,
pressure's on you to make it work.
Yeah. I run a company that works in tech.
Oh, true.
That doesn't say I'm good at it, but okay. So this is what traditional Menlo would look like. All day, every day, everybody working. This is Ben and Ian working together in a pair, 2 programmers working side by side, sharing a keyboard back and forth, collaborating with their peers, talking through problems together. This was Menlo for 19 years. All work done like this.
Yep.
Well, of course, that's not gonna work. So what does it look like now? And I think the cat actually has an important role to play in the process. I'll let you decide for that. But here's what it looks like now. Sarah and Ethan paired together. Ethan on the right-hand screen, the code on the left-hand screen, attending our daily stand-up meeting. We can talk about how that works. Even the cat comes to stand up. And now back to work, talking to each other all day long. So we didn't change the principle of collaboration, of teamwork, of relationships with one another. We just changed the physical practice of it.
Yeah.
Sarah is home, safe in her apartment with her cats and her books. Ethan, likewise, safe at home. We embraced physical distancing and we rejected social distancing. It was just the wrong term from our standpoint. We don't need to be apart. This is them collaborating with peers right now. There's Nicole and Helen chiming in on a problem they're trying to solve, and now back to work. And again, there's the cat checking the code. So this is Menlo now.
That is phenomenal. Just out of curiosity, can you track whether people are as productive in this format as they were in the office?
Well, yeah, we don't. So I'll just say that. But I will tell you why I don't think that we should. But I think there's that old adage that what you measure doesn't matter, and what matters you can't measure.
Yeah.
But understand that part of our culture, this idea of working together to a computer, whether in the office or at home, if you were goofing off all day long and we're paired together, you feel a personal responsibility to your pair partner. This is some boss hanging over your head saying, I want to make sure you're working all day long. I don't have to do that. They feel a responsibility towards each other. You know,
Yeah.
we were interviewing somebody in this fashion, and it was clear that this wasn't going to work with this person we were interviewing, because it was obvious during, I mean, this their interview, they're like literally working with a pair partner from Menlo, and they were spending their whole time like this. And they were like, "What are you doing? You're on your phone? I mean, you're interviewing, for goodness sakes." You know, I mean, it's like, you know, it just doesn't. There doesn't need to be any managerial oversight to make sure people are working at Menlo, because they just feel this responsibility toward one another.
Yeah, and also because they like their work, and they want to work there, and they're not just there for, not just trying not to get fired. Um, I've seen a lot of resistance to working from home in other organizations. I think the most recent one was it Goldman Sachs or somebody, one of the big American companies, that said, "Yeah, we're doing it now, but as soon as we can, we're going to bring people back into the office."
I think
Isn't the list
I think that's the same company that claimed that the people are working like 90 to 100 hours a week.
Yeah, there was a group of Goldman Sachs young hires just sent out a letter saying, "Could we please cap our working weeks at 80 hours so we don't have to work more than that?"
I mean, yeah, I used to work like that too, back in my
Yeah.
old.
Yeah.
We worked 40 hours a week. That's it.
Yeah.
When you go
Yeah,
on
at Menlo,
vacation-
right? No overwork at Menlo, right?
No, no. I mean, you know, and part of this goes to the purpose of our organization. We're trying to end human suffering in the world as it relates to technology. Well, some of that suffering is by the people who do the work. And our fundamental belief is tired people make bad software, and we don't want to make bad software, so we're not going to have tired people.
Yeah. How about staying in touch with people? As you're saying, loneliness is a real threat. How do you make sure that, if you see people daily in the office, maybe you can tell that, Lisa's having a bad day, or, George needs help or whatever. How have you handled this, as you're saying, the physical distance without the social, how do you stay in touch with people
Yeah,
in this time?
This was the part the team kind of, got frustrated with right away. Right. I mean, yes, you and I are paired together, so we've got our pair partners, but we have this communication mechanism at Menlo that we lovingly refer to as high-speed voice technology, which says if I want to talk to Alexander and he's across the room, I just say, "Hey, Alexander." And you say, "Hey, Rich," and now we're in a meeting. We didn't have to move, okay?
Yeah.
So we lost that, obviously. We can't yell loud enough to hear people who are in their house 5 miles away. And so the team was like, "Hey, we can't find people. And we need to find people. This is our nature. We want to be able to find people to ask questions, chime in, that sort of thing." So within the first week, and this is the delightful part of our culture, I think, because there was no committee formed, there was no policy written. They literally just do what we call, let's run the experiment. Let's try stuff. Let's take action over take a meeting, right? And so, so they said, "Look, every morning when the pairs get together, you and I got together this morning, what did we do? We shared a link with one another, right? It was obvious how we were going to connect, right? Because you emailed me a link and I clicked on it and here we are together. So we have a common link with each other. Everybody at Menlo has that, right? Every pair decides which technology we're going to use. Is it Google Meets? Is it, Zoom or whatever? And then they said, why don't we share those links with everybody? So they created the shared drive Google sheet. The pairs put their names on the left and their link on the right. And within days, we had this company-wide directory of all the active Zoom meetings. And so if you and I, literally right now, if we wanted to jump in on Lisa and George, we just go to the shared drive, I'd click on the link and they'd be right here with us. And problem solved just like that. And so it's not as easy as, "Hey, Alexander," but it's not terrible either. Because a lot of times, when you're trying to find other people in this work from home environment, you're like, well, does he want me to call him on his cell? Does he want me to text him? Does he want to get an email? And our team said, nope, we're in a Zoom meeting. We're in a Google Hangout. We're just going to share it. If you want to come talk to us, just jump in, because that's just the way it worked at Menlo.
That is awesome. And again, I think what's there's the practical solution, but then there's also the principles behind it, which was that people were free to experiment, run the experiment, try this out, see if it works. If it doesn't work, we'll come up with something else, but we can try it.
Yeah, our daily stand-up meeting, for example, is a great example of tried it, it failed, we adjusted, it worked.
Yeah.
And so
I remember that from when we were in your office. Everybody stands around in a big circle. People talk in pairs. Each pair holds the Viking helmet, one person by each horn. I do remember a dog running around the meeting as well. And then everybody has like 30 seconds.
Yeah,
the meeting can't be longer than 13 minutes, right?
Well, not that it can't be, it just isn't.
Yeah.
We don't have a rule about 13 minutes. It just takes 13 minutes, and we don't even know why. But let me show you what stand-up looked like and what it looks like now. This is kind of fun, because this is, let's see. Oh, here's stand-up. So stand-up at Menlo was called by this dartboard. Every day at 10 o'clock, the dartboard alarm goes off, and we gather in a circle. We pass around the 2-horn plastic Viking helmet, which I'm guessing. Oh, can you see this?
Nope.
Oh, sorry. I could see it. Why couldn't you?
But you described it so vividly.
Yeah, there we go. So here.
Now we see it.
Great. So here, that's the dartboard. Dartboard alarm goes off. We gather in a circle. We pass around the 2-horn plastic Viking helmet. Everybody reports out in their pairs. You can imagine, can't do this when you're in a work from home environment.
Nope.
And so, this was Menlo. The dogs, the babies come to stand up. All this happened every single day at 10 o'clock, 13 minutes, as you said, not by edict, just by convention. That's how long it took. Then we tried, when we went to work from home, we're like, okay, we'll just do a Zoom meeting with everybody. It was a total disaster. Nobody knew who was first. Nobody knew who was next. Nobody knew who was paired with whom, because Zoom scrambles all the pictures around. Nobody knew if everybody had gone. Nobody knew of who was last. And it was now 13 minutes went to 25, 30, 35, 40 minutes. And we were all like, this can't, I thought, okay, let's just jettison stand up. We'll come back to it. Oh no, the team's like, oh no, we're not jettisoning stand up. They replaced the 2-horn plastic Viking helmet with the chat window. And all they do is, when you and I sign into the Zoom meeting for the daily stand-up, one or the other of us would say next with Rich, or next with Alexander. And then Keely would say next with Ted, and James would say next with Emily. And then it just lined everybody up. We knew who was first. We knew who was together. We knew who was next. And the meeting went back down to 13 minutes. This took about a week to figure out. And it wasn't like no committee to write a policy. It was just like, hey, let's try this. And we're like, yeah, I think that'll work. And we just do it. So again, the title of this slide, we problem solve to maintain our values.
Yeah. And again, nothing fancy here, no new technologies, not new software you had to write or introduce or anything, just using, a little bit of creativity and existing tools, and then making sure that it promotes, that it supports the culture you already have. Have you, you told me just before we started the webinar that you've actually gotten closer to people. How the hell did that happen?
Yeah, well, look, again, I hope that people are enjoying these little visits with this slide deck I'm bringing up here, because this is actually a part of our experimentation. I'm just going to go back to kind of a principle here. So here's what we learned, something we've known all along. This was John Naisbitt's quote from 1982 when he wrote in Megatrends, that the most exciting breakthroughs that are going to occur in the century right now are not going to occur because of technology, because of a greater understanding of what it means to be human. This is why you and I are such good friends, because we both believe this, like, so down deep in our soul.
Oh yeah.
Right. That we couldn't help but find each other eventually. Right.
Yep.
There's like a tuning fork between you and I. So what did we learn? Well, you know what? When when everybody went home, and now we're in our Zoom meetings, whether stand up or otherwise, we get to see into the lives of people. We found out Sarah has 3 cats. We saw little Elsie again. Elsie was Menlo baby number 25. You know, we have this tradition of bringing newborns into the office, not a daycare, newborns with the parent all day long. We've had 25 Menlo babies in the last 13 years. Now we get to see the Menlo babies again. Because just like the cats, the baby, the young children, Elsie's now 2, she wants to see what's dad doing. And of course, we have this attitude now, and I've seen this a lot. You probably have too. We've gotten a lot more relaxed about these kind of things, haven't we?
Mm-hmm.
You know, I remember early on, there was this panel I was a part of. It was a highfalutin panel, a bunch of CEOs from around the world. And this German CEO is sitting there on the panel, and his 4-year-old son comes into the room. And I think in times past, he would have been, hey, honey, come get the kid. He's in, you know, in the room. And what did he do? He just picked his son up, set him on his lap, and continued the panel discussion.
Because why the hell not?
And I thought, that's it. This is what we're learning. We don't have to deny we have a life outside of work. And so that's what we see. We learned about Josh's grandfather who painted all these wonderful paintings on his basement wall. We would have never known that before. We had the first grandbaby of Menlo. Pop here got to bring his one of the twins that was born a year ago December into a daily stand-up meeting. We are seeing more into our humans, and this is the opportunity we have inside of where we're at right now. This idea that, look, embrace the entire human, not just the narrow employee human.
Yeah.
And I think these are the things, these are the lessons we're learning right now.
I love that. What about just 2 final themes I want to touch on? One is dress codes. I don't believe, does Menlo have a dress code?
We please dress.
Yes.
That's the dress code.
That makes sense. I can lift the veil of the mystery now and tell everybody that I am wearing pants, but they are sweatpants. This has, for me, this year has been the year of sweatpants, because sweatpants are amazingly comfortable. And I can
pause here. I got to tell you something, and I don't know if I'll actually be brave enough to do this, but I've done a lot of keynotes over the last year, just like this, right?
Yeah.
I didn't know that was even possible, but I've done a lot of them. I am determined when I have my first keynote on a real stage in front of a real audience, in front of a, you know, in a conference center, I am going to step out into the stage in my Zoom shirt, shorts, and slippers.
There you go. I dare you. I double dare you. You've got to do that. I think one of the lessons that we can take away is that work still got done even in sweatpants and shorts and flip flops, right? And maybe we could kill all the dress codes from now on. That's just one of my pet peeves. The final thing I wanted to touch on is one thing is staying. I mean, that's the model I always come back to, is results and relationships, because I think that's what makes us happy at work. When we have great results at work and great relationships. Yep. We talked a little bit about the relationships, maintaining contact, physical distancing without social distancing. How do you coordinate the work? How do you make sure that everybody knows what's going on, who's doing what? How do you make sure that people have this feeling that I'm actually doing good work, that, you know, I'm doing great work, and the team is progressing towards the goals it has? And I remember from your office space that a lot of what you did previously was physically on paper in the office. All of the tasks for a given project were on little cards,
index cards,
tacked to a wall, and you could follow the progress like that. How do you make sure that people still know they're doing good work?
Yeah, well, there's so much. I mean, I'll try and summarize. We have a strong system of defining and executing work. So one of the things I believe lifts the human energy of a team, 2 things: clarity, so people know what they should be working on, no ambiguity around that, and the ability to go to work and get meaningful things done.
Yes.
Actually done, right? I mean, there is no better feeling in the world. Like, I went to work, I worked really hard, and I got something done.
And it
right?
makes a difference for somebody. Somebody's
Right.
using my work for something important.
Yep. And so part of our practice, part of the reason that 3,000 to 4,000 people a year come from all over the world just to see us is because they want to see this system at work. And we have this weekly iterative cycle we go through, 5-day cycle. Everything is driven on this 5-day boundary. And at the end of the 5 days on every one of our client projects, we have with the customer what we call a show and tell. And this is an event. Normally it was done in person. Now, of course, it's done electronically. And even in the old days, we would do them electronically if the customer was in California. It didn't make sense to have them fly out to Michigan to just to see, 2 hours of meetings and that sort of thing. But we literally have our customer show us the work we did the previous 5 days. We don't show it to them. They show it to us. They put their hands on the keyboard and mouse and they explain to my team who's watching, all the people who did the work that week, they explain to my team what they got done. They emote. They tell it how they feel about it, right? And they might be disappointed. They might be ho-hum, or they might be really excited. We want to feel all those emotions, right? Because this is meaningful work we're doing, and software can be theoretical until somebody actually touches it and uses it. And so here's the customer demonstrating to us that they care about what we did the previous 5 days. And then they go into a planning cycle immediately after that to plan out the next 5 days work shoulder to shoulder with us. And again, it's all being done electronically. We transitioned all of our paper-based artifacts to electronic. I will tell you, they're not as good. It's not ideal, but it works. And obviously it can work. But we didn't change those basic principles of being clear about who's working with whom, who's working on what, why it matters, what the priorities are, what the sequence of the priorities are, and then this ability on a weekly basis to get feedback. Because one of the biggest challenges in most organizations is you can go months, sometimes years, and have no idea if anybody cares what you're working on. We get that feedback every 5 days.
Yeah. And that gives you that feeling that, my work matters.
Yeah.
And that is
And it
absolutely
matters
crucial.
to the people it should matter to, not like a boss says, oh, you did good work. Like, it's more like, no, here's the people who are paying us telling us we did good work. That's far more meaningful than me telling them they did good. I mean, they don't mind me saying it too, but they're like, Rich, you're not the one paying us to do this. It's that person over there.
Brilliant. We're going to wrap this up soon. Any final thoughts on, what's the one thing companies around the world should learn from COVID, keep doing after COVID?
Well, so many of I will call my fundamental beliefs have shifted, right? What does post-pandemic Menlo look like? My mind is wide open now. And I don't know. I mean, I ask the team on a regular basis, what do you want to have happen next? And I think that's going to be an important conversation all of us as leaders have with our teams. And we'll get different answers from different people for different reasons. And I think the thing I'm probably learning is, and that's okay. This doesn't have to be a unified answer. So for example, Dan says, I can't wait to be in the office. I miss everybody. I want to be there. We hear that a lot from George. Says, you know what? I'm really enjoying being at home with my 2-year-old Elsie. I might want to work 3 days a week in the office and 2 days a week at home. And my attitude is, of course, why not? We've made this work. I think the what people are referring to as the hybrid version, it's going to present some new challenges. And heck, what I learned is challenges, whatever, we'll work through them. I didn't feel that way 8 weeks into the pandemic. Let me tell you, I was losing sleep over all the changes we were going through. I think I was the laggard. I'm an old guy. I don't change that easily. But the team shifted and they adapted and they adopted all new, and they got stronger. I mean, here's an example. And this is available to all of your guests here today and anybody they want to talk to. We've invited thousands of people on tours every year. Get on airplanes, come to Menlo, spend a day to a week with us, right? Book a hotel room, very costly, very, very, inconvenient and that sort of thing. Well, last June, we offered to the world virtual tours. Never done that before. We did one, went better than we expected. We put out a little blurb and said, if anybody else is interested in a virtual tour, come visit. Well, I'll show you one more picture before we end here. Just kind of fun. So we count the tours. We get 3,000 to 4,000 people a year. We did these virtual tours, started in June. So it's only been, about 9 months. And since June, 57 countries, 37 states, people have come from all over the world. You don't have to get on an airplane. Doesn't cost you a thing. It's 90 minutes. And we have hit about 2,000 people who've come from all over the world. And talk about democratizing tours. Mm-hmm. Now anybody can come. They don't have to convince their boss to spend money on a flight and come all the way to Ann Arbor. They can come from anywhere. And so any of you are welcome to come. They're free.
And you absolutely should, because there's so much to Menlo that we haven't been able to talk about today. I remember there's a sign up page for the online tours on your website. We're going to share that, send that in an email to all the participants in the webinar, or people can go on menloinnovations.com and find the sign up link there, right?
And the reason I bring this up is simply this: when we go to post-pandemic Menlo, why on earth would we stop doing the virtual tours? Mm-hmm. Right? We'll do the physical ones again too, because people enjoyed that. But we learned how to do this. We won't stop doing this going forward. It would be dumb.
Exactly. So. And that, I think that besides, all the awesome things you do, my two main takeaways from today are, the practices may change. They will change, but the values remain the same, what you're trying to achieve with them. And then I get this feeling that there are a lot of things that you got to try that you honestly, if you're completely honest, probably wouldn't have tried otherwise.
Absolutely not. I mean, there are so many things we've done. If you had told me a year ago, or before there was a hint of COVID in the air, and say, "Hey, Rich, I think we should do virtual tours," or like, "Why bother?" I think you should allow people work from home. No way. I was very, very narrow in my thinking compared to the way I think now. So if there was one person who had to change a lot, it was me.
Yeah. That was awesome. Thank you so much for sharing all of your tips and ideas, Rich. And again, thanks for being awesome. If anybody wants to know more, we'll send out the link for the virtual tour of Menlo, and you can sign up for that. You should absolutely read Rich's books, Joy Inc. and Chief Joy Officer. They are both amazing. Menlo is currently hiring.
We
right?
are.
Yeah. Are you hiring remotely or only in Ann Arbor? What's the deal with that?
Yeah, great question. So we have established that, at least for now, we're telling people we are willing to bring people in from anywhere east of the Mississippi. That does up until the east coast of the United States. So, I understand everybody in Copenhagen's east of the Mississippi, or west, depending.
I got really excited there for a second.
Yeah, but that keeps people within about 1 hour time zone of us.
Time zones, yeah. So you compare.
But we have one guy who fell in love with a girl from Moscow, and he moved to Moscow, and he keeps working for us. And it's amazing. He literally has adjusted his work day to come in at 5 in the afternoon and works till 1 in the morning. He's had one of the Menlo babies is his, and they're having another one soon, and he's made it work. I'm amazed. We have another guy just moved to Seattle, and in times past, I think it would have been, "Hey, have a great trip. It was really nice working with you." And he came to us. He said, "Hey, my girlfriend and I have always wanted to live in Seattle. Can I keep working for Menlo?" And our answer was, "Of course." And so just a complete shift in attitude about this. I don't know if we'll keep them forever. There's a lot of opportunities in Seattle that'll probably pay more than Menlo will. I don't know. But, our culture is a strong draw, and we value his contribution. So he's going to try and make it work, and so are we.
That's awesome. So if anybody out there knows any software developers east of the Mississippi, you know where to send them. Thank you all for joining. Thank you to Rich for sharing his ideas. I just want to mention that, and thank you to HeartCount for arranging this. And of course, if you're looking for a great tool for measuring happiness at work and staying in touch with your employees, even in COVID times, especially in COVID times, then HeartCount is the best goddamn tool out there for it. And you should definitely check it out. We are going to send you a link to the video of this webinar so you can return to it, and you're free to share it with as many people as you want. So I hope you got some great ideas out of this. I really, really hope that, again, that we can take this crisis and learn from it, because that is fundamentally, it sucks when bad things happen to you. It just does. I mean, I don't think anybody's enjoyed COVID. I certainly haven't. But if you can at least learn from it, if you can at least take some good lessons from it and use them to strengthen the values that you believe in, and use them to be even more, who you are as an organization, I think that's a fantastic thing. And that way, a good crisis will not be wasted. So thank you all for being here. Thank you, Rich. Stay awesome.
Thank you, Alexander. Great to see you.